All right. I finally saw it. Shang-Chi. Going to talk to you about the new Marvel film, my thoughts on it, positives and negatives, those kinds of things. Maybe show you a little bit of the footage from the trailers, talk about that a little bit, and then kind of give you a little twist on what I expected and kind of where I think it might have went wrong. So, spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it yet, you don't want anything spoiled. But if you really want to know what cut and drive, how the film is, I'm going to go to you straight. So, uh, call it Shang-Chi because that's what I've said for 30, 40 years for reading comic books. And I know in the film, the character goes by Shang-Chi. So anyway, so the film opens, has three different sort of distinct sections of the film, very much in a similar structure as Black Widow, where you have the opening section, roughly that first 25 to a third of the 25% to a third of the film was okay, and that is the origin story of Shang-Chi's dad, how for 1,000 years he had obtained the what are called the 10 rings, which are the bracelets that you see in the trailer. Basically, he's just had a quest for power. He's conquered different nations, including like Rome, and then he doesn't really know what to do. So he's basically trying to find this mythical land, which is where he ultimately meets his match, a woman who basically becomes his mate and Shang-Chi's mom. The film, of course, cuts to San Francisco. We see all these beautiful postcard-esque looks at San Francisco, not at all what we hear about from San Francisco. There's no homeless, obviously. So, beautiful shots, Golden Gate, whatever, and you see Shang-Chi and his friend, played by Aquafina, as two losers who basically are these genius people who now just basically work as valets and drive cars. And of course, the scene is she takes a super fancy red car on a joyride with him in the passenger seat, scared to death. And then we cut to what their lives are, which is basically just a montage of them basically partying all night, doing karaoke, and then passing out, and then getting up and seeing her family. So that kind of sets along the way, and then they are on a bus the next morning, and that's when they're attacked, and that's the scene that you see in the trailer. And that moves the story along to where basically they're after this medallion that he has from his childhood. And Aquafina's character, even though she's been his friend for like 10 years, she doesn't know anything about it, doesn't know he can do martial arts, doesn't know all this. Basically, they steal this medallion, and he's got to warn his sister, and that's kind of what sets off the journey. Then the middle chapter is that they find this fight club that his sister now runs, and there's tons of flashbacks, tons of exposition to get to this whole story. And then the last third of the film, or last quarter of the film, is this fantastical land called, I believe, Talo is how you say it, and that is where, the dad thinks the mom is being held prisoner, and they're trying. That's where this battle scene. It's fantastical with like mythical creatures, like Pokemon-looking creatures, and then dragons. So that's the general structure of the film. Some stuff works, some stuff doesn't. Not nearly as bad as Black Widow, but definitely not the amazing triumph that some critics want to call it. Don't know what film they saw. The film is so the martial arts scene on the bus, the martial arts scene on the like the scaffolding on the skyscraper, which is at the kind of the end of the section in the middle, right? So section 1 into 2 is this transition where the dad's catching up to them. You get a big fight scene there with the goons and Death Dealer. Those scenes are very good, very Jackie Chan martial arts. I think Simu Liu did fine on all those scenes. Aquafina is actually surprisingly very good in this film, and all that's fine. And it transitions well. The sister running the fight club, that's the scene where you see Wong versus Abomination. I think that the trailer will show you a shot of that. And the middle part is where the film, basically to me, starts to really fall apart because I'm bored out of my mind. It comes to a screeching halt at one point. Tons and tons of exposition, them telling you stories, explaining to you all this mythology, the family stuff, all that. And basically, Tony Leung's the dad, which is basically what the Mandarin is supposed to be. They mock the name Mandarin like it's like a chicken dinner name, and I'm like, oh, geez. So we don't really get the Mandarin. I don't think that we really even get Fu Manchu, but I guess in some ways we kind of do. We get this basically knockoff, pathetic version of that from a comic book standpoint. But I will say that the villain is not terrible. It's actually more interesting that he's got this family structure and dynamic, trying to put them back together. He's been very powerful, but he doesn't really have a whole lot of purpose since he lost his wife. I think all of that was fine. The sister is very bland in this first part. And then you get to the fantastical scene, which to me is just CGI fest and silliness and all this typical stuff that the MCU has just become. It's like expected, but it's also, I don't find any of it really that rewarding or entertaining. So what are some of the low points? Okay, so first off, the high points are the other characters of the film. Simu Liu is actually the weakest element of the film for me, because it just seems like in his facial expressions in particular, there's just not a lot of emotions. He doesn't really carry any scenes well. I think the script really does him a disservice. Obviously, you have some of the third wave feminist stuff, right? So the sister never loses a fight. She kicks him in the groin. She's victorious at the end. And of course, there's an end credit scene that relevant to her. So she matters so much more than him. And in fact, he barely knows how to use the bracelets when he has them. He's not really got anything in the film that really changes, or they take the little necklace away from him. So I'm like, okay, but why would you not have gone home? I don't know. There's a whole lot of things. They mention the blip, but they don't mention the blip. Like, it's like a side thing. But I'm like, well, if he watched half the world go or not go, or he got blipped, like, it's not addressed. It seems like no matter what happened, life after the blip, he would have gone home to see his dad or his family or his sister or something. All of that, and them ignoring all of that, doesn't make any sense. And then at the end, of course, he has to learn from his aunt this mystical way that the mom fought. So the mom was like an equal to the dad as far as the martial arts and the spirituality. So once he embraces what she represents in his life, then suddenly he's an equal to his dad and can hold his own. But there's a lot of martial arts at the end. So the martial arts are kind of set aside, and you basically get one army versus another. You get these dragons. You get good dragon versus this sort of like Dungeons and Dragons dragon. This more of a mythical, weird creature thing. And it's fine. Awkwafina's character has some really good scenes. They're this on again, off again hint at romantic comedy. I don't know if they were trying to go to a point where. So if there was like a Shang-Chi 2 or how he should, I won't be shocked if they try to make him a gay character, because it doesn't make sense that they have this long-lasting friendship the way they do, but they're not a couple. And that's the only thing that comes out of the one scene when they visit her family, is that he gets, talking to the grandmother, we're just friends. But it doesn't really make any sense. And I don't really know how to take all that. Like, why is Awkwafina not the girlfriend? Like, why is she not good? Is she not good enough? Does it not fit? I don't know. It's all of that's just weird. And it's a fine friendship element for a while, but when you factor in, traipsing all over the earth and going to this fantasy land, and then she suddenly takes up a bow and arrow lesson or two, and she saves the day with the dragon shot. That was just, I don't know. It was awful. Okay. I mentioned that some of the cast was good. I mean, I don't really have any complaints. I think the Death Dealer scene, that fight scene, that was really, really good. It's a shame that Death Dealer was kind of thrown away at the end. Like, it's just stupid how this ends with the, Razor Fist and Death Dealer just cast aside, basically. So that stuff's all dumb. Let me run through the trailer for you so I can maybe talk about some of the footage, and you can kind of understand a little bit about where I'm coming from with my perspective of things, because I think that so this is one of the trailers, and you can see this is the dark gloominess of the area where they train. And this is when he returns home, and he's basically, this film, I didn't really get to this. The film is riddled with a ton of flashbacks. Like, we're flashing back to all different elements of their childhood, pieces of conversation, pieces of the story, Shang-Chi's motivation to, he's being sent by his dad. He's been trained his whole life. Then at 14, I think it's 14, he's sent to be the assassin of his mom's killer. And it's like, he can't do it, but he does it. And it's just, they can't get out of their own way. They make this way more complicated than it needs to be. It's not a complicated origin story, but it feels so burdensome in the way. and he never really is that likable or enjoyable. Like, there's really not a hero's journey per se. It's more like just facing your family past or whatever. So this is him returning. That's his fist he was beating, punching out when he was a kid. So the trailer. So, okay, so this is another thing for me that really I have a hard time with, right? So so that's the shot of him training. So that's the opening scene, right? So he's the loser in San Francisco, and you see him doing push-ups. This guy is ripped and is like still like a martial arts expert. So how do you have a 10-year friend and you work alongside, you don't really have any money, and you have time to train, and you're trained, and she doesn't know how good you are. All like there's these little things that don't make any sense. So this is the car, the Beamer that pulls up that they hijack for a joyride. Anyway, so here's them as losers, as the valet, and this is their drinking night because they have to, they're just partying, that kind of thing. This is that lifestyle and all that kind of silly. So this is when we transition. So this is a shot where this is Shang-Chi's childhood. This is him training with Death Dealer. And again, there's flashback sequences. So the story will move forward and move back, move forward and move back. And that happens like multiple times. And it's fine. I mean, I'm not saying it's not that you're going to get confused and not be able to follow it. I just don't think it was necessary to have it structured the way they did. So that's what all of this is from. And then, of course, this is inner shot, with those different timelines. So this is the violence and the revenge scenes, with training and him training and facing his past. And so this all has been done completely out of order. So this is the Fight Club sequence. Well, they're not yet. So this is the Fight Club shot, but the change you saw there, we'll get to the change again. So this is the middle compound, right? So this is that middle chapter where they go to basically this hidden area where the dad is running his criminal organization, the Ten Rings. And that's what all of that is, them arriving. And by the way, let me just go back just one shot. And I'm sorry, nitpick. Since when does Marvel not care how their heroes look? He dresses like the loser the whole time. Like he's wearing baggy clothes, sweatshirt, t-shirt, tennis shoes. It's like, I don't know. I don't feel like I'm ever looking at the hero. I don't know. I'm nitpicking. I know that. So this is a shot of Tommy, his not Mandarin. It was so close to actually getting where it could be good, and it has moments where it's not bad. All right, so this is the fight scene where you're going to see this is actually the shot of the dad facing that army I was telling you about in that final chapter. These are these mythical creatures. You don't really get a good, like the promotional material didn't really show much about chapter 3. I'm sure that was by design. They didn't want to spoil it, but in some ways it kind of misled the film a little bit. So this was this weird supernatural element. Let me back that up one shot where they get the medallions. It leads to this water map of how to find this mystical place called Talo. The only thing that really saves all that part and the fact that we have this transition with this magic and all of this is the fact that Awkwafina kind of like has these little comic relief. Like it never really got irritating. I have to be honest. It helps. They don't handle humor well, though. There's a lot of scenes that are kind of disconnected from the mood with their terrible timing of jokes and that kind of thing. So this Death Dealer, this is the scaffolding scenes, this fight scene, one of the best. I don't know. I really like the bus scene more than I thought I would. I was going to I went into the movie going, I'm not going to like the bus scene. It's going to be like that terrible ending of Black Widow where it's not going to make sense because, it's a bus that's railing out of control, and they're able to hold this fight scene together. But it was okay. This scene was actually pretty good. But all this stuff, this actual martial arts, it was really good. It was Jackie Chan-esque. I wish there wasn't so many cuts. I wish they would have more of a traditional martial arts where there's not cuts. The shots that are here is the original shots of him finding Shang-Chi's mom. Here's that battle sequence at the end in the 3rd chapter. And there was a shot of the mythical creature there, I guess. Better than I thought, right here. So there's a couple shots. It goes by so fast. It was hard we wouldn't have picked up. And then of course, this is the famous. This is their Fight Club shot. This is the sister. kicking his butt, and then ultimately does kick him in the groin and beat him up. Then, of course, the bus sequence. We've seen a lot of this. And this is the scene where they start fighting. It's just a montage of these different scenes, bus scenes, and all that was fine. That shot, it's just like he wears these cheesy clothes and all that. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. So this is just that bus sequence. Let me see, what was the end shot? Yeah, that was just a bus careening out of control. So, all right. So here's my thing. The blip is this weird thing that they don't know how to handle. And I think this would have been their perfect excuse to really embrace this concept of the 5-year thing, because I would have had his character. First of all, he should have been the Mandarin. Like, I don't understand why we're going to play this both games. We want it both ways. He's the Mandarin. He runs the 10 rings. And I'm not even going to discuss the Ben Kingsley character, the Trevor Slattery character, and this little weird fluff ball thing with wings. All this that was total Disney nonsense to sell stuffed animals. His character, it's just all that stuff just needed to go. We didn't need to have all of that. They should have had an opening sequence that could have dealt with some of that. Anyway, I think the blip, he should have not been blipped, but a bunch of his army should have been blipped, and a bunch of the things in the world structure could have been blipped, so that he would have been able to rise to power in Asia. But he still could have been burdened with this desire to seek this fantastical land. He needs these medallions and create the conflict, and make him embrace the crime stuff. Make him embrace, I think that there should have been this crazy fight with Death Dealer. Shang-Chi loses. They get captured. Then they're with the dad. That's basically what happened anyway. He just doesn't lose. And then later he would have to overcome the Death Dealer in order to escape the compound, or whatever they had to do with the story. We didn't need to rewrite the whole story. We just had to restructure some of the stuff, and we didn't need some of the retelling and some of the flashbacks the way they're done. It was just so tedious. But yeah, I would have had an opening sequence that would have dealt with this Trevor Slattery nonsense right out of the gate and got rid of that. And we didn't need to sell that stupid fluff ball thing with wings. Look, I understand there's some comic relief that needs to be instituted. Marvel doesn't really always do that right. I think they sell themselves short with some of that stuff. So it's a middle of the road film, near the bottom for me. Like, there's so many films as part of the problem, right? So I say the bottom, I don't mean the very bottom. Like, this is not Iron Man 2, Thor 2, Dark World. It's not, and it definitely isn't as bad as Black Widow or anything like that. It's Ant-Man and Wasp. It's sort of in this bottom tier of movies, but it's not terrible. I know that it loves all this stuff about, we have to be so pro-Asian and Asian culture and beautiful. You know what, dude? You people that are saying all that, go watch Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Just shut up, please, because this movie doesn't even touch the beauty and the grace of martial art films. I mean, I got to be honest. Even the martial arts and the fight scenes that Tarantino did in the Kill Bill films are like 100 times better than this film. It was at least significantly more entertaining. So they're fine. I'm not trying to nix them, and I feel like I'm putting Jackie Chan down, but I'm not, because they're very well choreographed. They're very interesting at times. The bus scene and the scaffolding scenes were fine. The problem is the rest of the movie, there's all this this hocus pocus mystical stuff, but it's like half is fake and science fiction-y, not real, and half is supposed to be real. So it's like, well, that's not really representation. I don't know. It kind of works. It kind of doesn't work. It's a middle of the road film. I don't know. Tell me what you think. Maybe you like it more than I do. You think I'm crazy, or maybe you're like, you know what? I'm glad I'm not the only one, because I had mixed feelings because I want to like it, but I'm also was not enthusiastic. So that's why I didn't race out to see it and waited for it to be cheaper. And don't really feel like anything matters. The cage match stuff with Abomination goes by as fast. It's a trailer. Like, it's literally like 30 seconds to a minute, maybe more than the trailer. I mean, it's just, and then it was like, he's just a big thug. He's not interesting or relevant. I think the end credit scene with them analyzing the rings with Banner and Wong and Captain Marvel. Yes, Space Karen makes her cameo. No one knows what the rings are. I don't care. They don't do anything for me to make me care about the rings. So they're basically trying to make it mythical or mysterious. So therefore, I'm supposed to care whether they're talking about. The fan theories are crazy. whatever the fan theories are, they're wrong. If you think these people are going to link this to Galactus, or you think these people have linked this to Kang, I'll believe it when I see it. If I have to bet and pick, I think it's more likely it will tie to a beacon or have something to do with Eternals or Kang in the Ant-Man and Wasp. Like, it won't be anything relevant anytime soon, or so, I don't know. I don't. The writing is so mediocre at this point. I guess one of the co-writers also was a co-writer on Wonder Woman 84, so that explained a lot for me, like stuff that didn't work. But like I said, mediocre, not terrible. I don't know. Catch it when you can, but don't need to worry about racing out and getting. And you definitely aren't missing anything in the grand scheme of the MCU. That's for sure. That's my take, and I'm Pops.